Summer bass fishing can get challenging real quickly. These are my 4 go-to locations that I try to find and think about before I ever launch the boat. They hold bass all summer, and my confidence is in a good place to start the day, which makes a huge difference. Number 1, I always try to find moving water. Now, you may be thinking of traditional current, but I like to rename this moving water because it applies to any lake, river, or pond fishing situation. Are there places where you have fountains going? Is there runoff? Are boat wakes pushing waves across a point? What about wind moving the water through a pinch point? Or even the activity and disruption near a boat ramp can cause moving water and get the food chain going. Moving water is also super important to maintain healthy oxygen levels in the heat of the summer. You sometimes may catch a lot of bass super shallow on certain bodies of water when it is blazing hot out. This is likely because a lot of the life is shallow, trying to position themselves in the best oxygenated water. They may not want to be shallow because it's hotter, but they have no choice because they need better dissolved oxygen. Always be thinking, can I find moving water of any sort? Number 2, if you prefer to be a shallow water fisherman during the summer, then it is hard to beat boat docks. But before you think, well, of course, the best boat docks are going to be the ones with deeper water access right near them. You may see docks like this that have really long walkways to get to the end of them. We know that means there is extra shallow water for a long distance. I prefer to find docks that can be built or tied off right on a shoreline because you know deeper water is close, and that access to deeper water makes all the difference when the temperatures are blazing. Not to mention it provides security to slip away when something seems out of place. In fact, this singular characteristic is my number 1 factor for any shallow shoreline cover in the summer. And don't forget, those extra long casts to these areas can make a noticeable difference when the bite is tough. Number 3, offshore cover and structure can be golden this time of year, but my favorite, if I can find them, are offshore weed beds. I prefer them to other traditional offshore areas, once again, because of oxygen. A healthy stand of offshore weeds can create ideal oxygen levels, and all types of life will be there. And when you have the life, you know the bass will be around also. Offshore weed beds are also less susceptible to fish being startled easily. They are likely a little deeper, they feel more secure, and they have already had all that summer boat traffic running over the top of them, and the longer summer goes on, the more they grow accustomed to it. Also, they are less apt to panic as their shallow water counterparts. Before we get to number 4, if you love learning about bass behavior, you can join our Bass Behavior Bundle membership. Join for a month, 2 months, whatever you like. We've got 30 videos on there now. The library keeps growing. Thank you for supporting the channel. Number 4, I really love this one if I can find it on a body of water, and that is any sort of gravel or small rock type of area that juts out from the shoreline. Basically, gravel points that aren't so obvious. In other words, a boat running down the lake may not even see them when just looking at the shoreline because the visible shoreline doesn't really look like much. But under the water, it is clear that you have a nice gravel bed that reaches out into the lake or river. These are ideal feeding places, especially if you are lucky enough to have current washing over them. And when the bass are not in an active feeding mode, they often just slip to the back side or the deeper water side and then loaf. In other words, these types of gravelly areas have fish near them most of the time. And of course, you can narrow down areas to find them with topo maps, but you can really scout some great locations with Google Earth, especially if the water you are fishing has a little bit of clarity to it. And hey, if you'd like to watch a video that talks about scent, has some time-lapse footage of scent on lures, and maybe a different way to think about scent, go ahead and check this one out right here. And make sure that you go out and encourage someone today You never know how you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.